everyone. It's a pleasure to be on this platform. Just to clarify something, I would find people think we are divorce attorneys. We are not. We are health and safety practitioners. So yeah, thanks once again for being invited by the Black Business Council. I understand we are running out of time, so my presentation is going to be brief. I see there's some of my friends here on this platform, and Chair, please just make sure if the laptops that they're using are not looted, because you can't trust these guys. Anyway, I'm going to try to fly through this presentation. I must say it's very difficult to squash a 4-year program into 20 minutes. So, but I'll try to give everyone basics and obviously things that I have not covered, on this platform. Then people can just answer questions. Then I will definitely take it from there. All right, so this is our program layout, the history of IPS, who we are, duties of the employers under the Act. Obviously, this will be applicable to every youth contractor that's on this platform, client duties, principal contractor duties, and your basic health and safety file compilation, which serves as the nucleus of health and safety compliance on a typical construction site. And I'm glad that my brother, Hilton, will be coming after me from Department of Labor to actually share more light, especially from an inspection authority point of view. All right, so we were born in 2008. I started the organization, and obviously I did not have any responsibility. So yeah, it's always easy to start a practice or an organization if you don't have any responsibility. So I would urge any youth contractor to go crazy. It's much easier if you don't have any obligations. So yeah, we are originally from Alexandra Township. Our speciality is construction health and safety, occupational health, medical exams, road safety solutions, and obviously COVID-19 since early last year. Today, actually this year, we are turning 13 years with 50 employees. So it has been a painful road. I heard the previous speaker speaking about I don't know, I'm not sure about that, because this has been a painful 13 years, to be honest with you. Some clients, not as easy as others. Some female clients, more brutal than male clients. So yeah, it really has been a painful 13 years, but yeah, we do soldier on. We are registered with SACP CMP. It is a funny abbreviation. We are registered with the South African Society of Occupational Health Nurses, so that we can render occupational health medical exams for anyone needing that service. So going on to our main slide, I think every youth contractor needs to be cognizant of the fact that they are typically now employers. So as an employer, the bedrock of our law, which is the Occupational Health and Safety Act, prescribes you to provide and maintain a healthy and a safe working environment. So yeah, so we're reasonably practicable, a working environment that is safe without risk to the health of employees and other persons that may be affected by his activities. So having said that, in order obviously for one to declare an environment safe, you have to assess it first. So obviously that means one must actually do what we call a risk assessment. So your duty fundamentally is to do two things, is to identify what can go wrong and identify what can cause it to go wrong. So on a typical construction site, there's many challenges, from financial challenges to business disruption to the business mafia failing to understand the 30%, to employees not coming on site, to people working at heights. So those are some of the things that you as a young contractor will have to, obviously with your safety officer or with your safety department, you'll have to sit down and say, on our project, what can go wrong? Our employees can be exposed to noise. They can be working at heights. They can be working with dangerous equipment. Then obviously you therefore obviously identify what can cause that to go wrong. So if people are exposed to noise, what is the source? You know, if people are working at heights, where are they working at heights from? Are they working from a ladder? They're working from a scaffolding, you know, so a simple spreadsheet, you know, can allow you to actually reach maximum compliance. So to be honest with everyone, this is actually the bedrock of occupational health and safety compliance. You just need to identify what can go wrong realistically, so, you know, and come up with control measures. So if you look at the screen in front of you, you can see Spider-Man on the left. Obviously, there's no protection there. If you can, below him is a gentleman who's grinding, obviously without a facial mask. In the middle, there's deep excavations, obviously installing a storm water pipe. But now you can see that gentleman who's struggling to get in and out. So obviously there's no proper access. You know, Chair, on the top right, this was actually taken on a site, you know, of a gentleman. I'm not going to mention his name because I think he's here. He's from Katlehong. He wears fancy shoes all the time, you know, Roberto Botticelli's, but his wheelbarrow, 3 of his wheelbarrows look like that. So yeah, so I think it's just a case of prioritizing quality site material as opposed to trying to look flashy. The bottom picture, obviously, there is no edge protection, so people can obviously fall. So that presents itself a risk. So obviously, as a youth contractor and parcel of your job, whether you're going to delegate that responsibility to someone who you're going to be appointing as a construction manager, you would still need to make sure that all these things are in place. The common misunderstanding on a lot of projects, people are saying, do I need a health and safety officer? Do I need a health and safety rep? Which one is which? That is the breakdown. Health and safety officer is obviously someone who's legitimized to having the experience in managing construction health and safety, obviously on your behalf as an employer. A health and safety rep is just a voluntary appointment. So for example, you start your project, you have 20 employees on site. Those 20 employees get to elect someone who they feel, you know, that can share their concerns with regards to health and safety on site. They nominate that person, they elect that person, then ultimately you as the employer appoint, you know, legally so, that person as the health and safety rep. So he or she is basically representing, you know, your employees on health and safety issues. So that is the big difference between the two. So obviously your health and safety officer on the left, he must be registered with the professional council, and your rep is just a voluntary appointment. As you can see, your officer is remunerated and your rep is not remunerated. But I don't want to confuse this with the mines, because the Mines Health and Safety Act works completely different. So let's just ring fence it to the construction sector. From an accountability point of view, both are employees, so they can be held accountable should they violate any health and safety codes on site. But professionally speaking, the safety officer can be held accountable for giving improper advice or advice that's not reasonably practicable. And whereas the health and safety rep necessarily cannot, on the basis that he or she is not a subject matter expert in terms of occupational health and safety as a discipline. Client duties, so your Department of Public Works, Health, SAPS, wanting to build police stations, DBSA as an implementing agent, you know, or you're a private developer, obviously, so this section would apply to those people. But for youth contractors, what comes out of this is that you need to be issued with what we call a baseline risk assessment from the client. Whether a client is going to hire what we call a health and safety agent like myself, you know, there is no way that you can comply, you know, with construction site requirements if your client does not provide you with those two documents, a baseline risk assessment and a health and safety specification. So both those documents have to be part and parcel of a tender process. We still struggle to date with clients expecting us to produce these documents while you are on site, which actually deters the whole process. So the intention of the legislature here is to make sure that when the project starts, from stage one, when we're initiating, then we conceptualize, then we design, that health and safety is carried out throughout the entire value chain. So come tendering, which is stage 4, when you are completing your tender document, already health and safety is part and parcel of that tender pack. And why that is amazing, it's because it allows you now to sit with your health and safety officer to say, you know, what are the general requirements for us to actually complete, for us to conform. So obviously those specifications are going to specify into detail what can go wrong on site, you know, what can cause it to go wrong on site. For example, if you looked at the Medupi project, it was on the outskirts of Lephalale. The closest fire station was very far away. Obviously, medical services were very far away. So the principal contractor, Hitachi, then Marion Roberts, had to build all of those things in, you know, into their pricing. So that's what you need to consider as well. I mean, if you look at the bottom part, I mean, the bottom bullet, you'll have to make adequate provision for health and safety. You know, the previous regulation of 2003 did not allow for this. You know, so the amended construction regulations of 2014 saw the need to close the gap. So instead of saying, we are now going to minimize your profit margins for health and safety compliance, you know, we're going to now remove that responsibility from you to the client. But what you just need to do is that you need to complete your bill of quantities sufficiently. And what is nice is that typically within the health and safety spec, we would give you a breakdown, or we would give the quantity surveyor, you know, a breakdown to say anyone who's bidding for this work, here's a health and safety bill of quantities that they need to complete, whether it's COVID-19 compliance, whether it's developing a health and safety plan, whether it's the hiring of an SACP-CMP registered health and safety officer, whether it's you procuring a first aid kit and a firefighting equipment, whether it's you buying personal protective equipment, you know, buying an alcohol meter because we know we're dealing with a lot of drunkards on our construction sites, whatever. All of that, you know, all of that will be at your disposal, so that you can submit those tenders adequately. So I think this is brilliant from what the Department of Labor has done. The next slide, principal contractor duties. Obviously, these are directed to you. Provide the client with a documented health and safety plan. So that plan is going to be based on the specifications that the client has provided you and the baseline risk assessment that the client has provided. So please, ladies and gentlemen, on a day-to-day basis, I'll see a health and safety plan that's written Musina and the project is in Middleburn. So please get someone who's competent to draft that health and safety plan on your behalf. There's a lot of unemployed SACP-CMP registered health and safety officers that can help you. So let's please support our brothers. You know, if not, you guys can contact IPS directly. We can obviously give you guidance with that. So obviously you'll have to keep and maintain a health and safety file. Like I said, you will be given an opportunity to price for that file in your health and safety bill of quantities. If you look at bullet number 4, this is quite crucial. The implementation of a medical surveillance program. Every employee by law has to be subjected to a medical surveillance program. And we do that so that we can ascertain the individual's level of health. We want fit people to service our construction sites. We don't want to disregard certain people with ailments. But we need to realize that in order to do laborious work, one needs to be fit. Hence, we're doing a valid medical certificate of fitness. And obviously, we're doing this medical certificate of fitness so that we can protect the client and yourself, and most importantly, your employee. So, but this must be done by an occupational health practitioner. That's either going to be an occupational health nurse, or that's going to be an occupational medical practitioner. The nurses must be registered with a council called SASON, South African Council of Occupational Health Nursing Practitioners, and occupational medical practitioners must be registered to SASON. So if your OHP does not have such credentials, please tell them to vacate your site. You know, because we're also sitting with a lot of fly-by-nights in that industry. If you look at the last one, I'm sure we're going to have a debate around this. The law requires you to appoint one full-time competent person as a construction manager with the duty of managing only one single site. So one would argue that, is it really viable? Is that reasonably practical? So I think the intention of the legislature here was that you would want to appoint a CM, as the abbreviation, construction manager, who will solely focus on one project, because his focus also includes that he's got a duty to ensure that there's occupational health and safety on the project. So if now that one person is scattered between 4 or 5 sites, it may derail him or her to actually execute his or her duties optimally. So I think that is the intention of the legislature. But yeah, a lot of smaller contractors do actually get into trouble with that. But yeah, that's what the law currently requires. And on a final note, health and safety files, I would propose, again, if you need assistance with the development of a health and safety file, please consult any health and safety practitioner who's registered with the SACP-CMG. There's a lot of consultants out there who actually do this, but please just make sure that, they're going to give you good service. This is just a general breakdown. I mean, this is just an example of what your health and safety system should look like, to have maximum compliance. So obviously these are just generic bullets depending on the type of project that you have. I mean, if you're going to be working on a road project, point number 9, pollution safety, obviously is a critical, component, because you don't want your people struggling to use the toilet, so yeah. But if you look at, for example, okay, now point number 7 becomes a standard item. Emergency preparedness, obviously, like I made an example, with the Medupi power station project. So if you look at this architecture, it gives you an idea of how you can go about developing your plan. So obviously your health and safety plan as a document will be part and parcel of your health and safety file, which would consist of almost all these 13, 14 items. So yeah, policies, you need to have a policy for health and safety. How are you going to ensure that your people are safe? You need to have a policy on intoxication. We know that weed has been legalized and a lot of people smoke Zol on site. So you'll have to have a policy around that. There's a lot of women working on site. You may need to establish a pregnancy policy. What are you going to do if an employee is pregnant on site? COVID-19, obviously, I believe our colleague from ENZA spoke about this, I think a week or 2 weeks ago. So I'm not necessarily going to touch on that. So your health and safety plan is number 3. Your legal appointments, obviously your construction manager is obviously key. You're going to have supervisors on the job. So all those appointments need to be signed off by you, obviously, as the owner of the company. So you would automatically take up what we call a section 16.1 appointment letter. So yeah, so that would typically be a master file. Then your work file, that your health and safety officer, assisted by your health and safety rep, will be working on this. So they'll definitely be working on both files, but this is the file that they're going to be working on. We spoke about hazard identification risk assessments earlier. You'll have to develop safe working procedures. If you're going to be working at heights, how are you going to work safely at heights? Toolbox talks, a variety of topics just to conscientize people, around health and safety. If you're going to be working on your human settlement projects where there's a lot of affordable housing, where there's a lot of residential housing being built, there's a lot of work at heights, and they usually use a trestle scaffold as opposed to a quick stage. Is that the safest way to go about it? Inspection registers, incident management, again, our friend from ENZA spoke about that. So yeah, that wraps up my presentations, Chair. I'm not too sure if there are any other questions.